Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, Doc.
And can you hear me
So,
loud and clear?
Yes, Doc. We
yes,
can
Doc.
hear you now, Doc.
Sorry, class, I'm still figuring out. Right now, can you hear me loud and
Yes, Doc. Loud and clear.
earbud? Wait sa ako sa icon. How about this time, guys? Can you hear me?
Yes, Doc.
Yes, Doc.
Okay na, guys? Can you hear me na?
Yes po.
Okay, okay. Okay, sige. Thank you. Thank you. I'll sige, I'll start my one screen. I'll start my screen sharing. So we can start. Okay, once again, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. So our topic for this afternoon is about vascular diseases. Okay, I have problem on my earbud. I cannot hear you guys, but according to you, you can hear me now. So I guess that's the do lang. Uh, we'll proceed na lang as long as you can hear me, right? So please chat na lang sa chat box. So I would know if you really can hear me. All right. Okay, so Oppo, we will just chat, so it means you can hear me. Okay. Am I loud and clear? Last check na lang. Am I loud and clear? Yes, photo. Okay.
Yes, Doc.
Okay. That's good. That's okay. Again, once again, good afternoon. So for our topic again, it's about vascular diseases. It's the first lecture under cardiovascular system. The cardiovascular system topic is divided into three. So the first part is vascular diseases, and then the other two parts uh, is more on cardiac. Without further ado, let's begin. So before we proceed, I would like to give a short review lang, no, on the anatomy and physiology of the cardiovascular system. Shown in this picture is the cardiovascular system, and uh, to discuss about regional specialization of the vasculature. So uh, we will differentiate each part. So let's start with the aorta. So there's a difference, no, in the thickness and composition of the various layers of this vasculature. For example, in aorta, I will use na lang sa, so for example, in this aorta, so in aorta and other elastic arteries, we have uh, we have substantial elastic tissue. So this elastic tissue, this can accommodate high pulsatile forces, and it also gives the capacity to recoil during the transmission of energy to forward the blood flow. To compare with the other artery, uh, the muscular artery, those purely muscular artery they have uh, lesser elastic fibers. Actually, the elastic fiber can only be seen at the intersection of the intima and tibia. So, kaning black part bitaw nga in circle, that represents the elastic fiber of the muscular artery. So, to compare, so the aorta needs more elastic component compared to the muscular artery. When it goes to the arteriole, so as you can see, there are less or no more elastic component. For the venous part, wherein there's no pressure, the venous system, they have poorly developed and thinner media layer. It permits greater capacitance. And for the capillary wall permits uh, diffusion of the oxygen and nutrients. So thus, it only composed of endothelial cells and pericytes to support them. So that's the brief discussion for the cardiovascular system. So under this vascular uh, system or diseases, vascular diseases, these are topics that we will discuss this afternoon. So we have vascular anomalies, vascular wall response to injury, hypertensive vascular disease, arteriosclerosis versus atherosclerosis. We will go into them. Then we have aneurysm and dissection, the different vasculitis, then the disorders of veins, and then last part is the vascular change. So first, we have the vascular anomalies. So for vascular anomalies, we have developmental or berry aneurysm. So these aneurysms occur in cerebral vessels, and when they rupture, they can cause uh, fatal intracerebral hemorrhage. For the arteriovenous fistulas, these fistulas are direct connections between arteries and veins that bypass the usual capillaries. So they occur most commonly as developmental defects, but they can also result from rupture of arterial aneurysm or from penetrating injuries or from inflammatory necrosis of adjacent. However, arteriovenous fistula can also be surgically generated for the purpose of chronic hemodialysis. So in your clinics, you can encounter patients with surgically generated AV fistula for their dialysis. Then we have fibromuscular dysplasia. So this refers to the focal irregular thickening in the medium and large muscular arteries, such as the renal, the carotid, splanchnic, and vertebral vessels. So the cause of this is unknown, as shown in the picture. No? This is part of the renal circulation. So on geography and angiography of this vessel, we can appreciate the characteristic trim of this appearance. This one, because of uh, fibromuscular dysplasia. We also have anomalous coronary artery. So this anomalous coronary artery origin occurs from the developmental anomaly in which both coronary arteries arise over the same coronary cusp. So the danger of this type of vascular anomaly is when during exercise it can be squeezed. Thus it will limit the blood flow and it will result in a sudden death. So that is for vascular anomaly. Next we have vascular wall response to injury. Let me check lang sa guys, no? Do you have any questions so far? Can you please chat if you can still hear me loud and clear? Okay. Yes, Paul, yes, okay, loud and clear. Okay, so far no question, right? Okay, thank you. Let's proceed. So again, We proceed to the vascular wall response to injury. So the picture on your left shows a table that presents the different properties and functions of the endothelial cells. Remember, the endothelial cells are the cells that line the endothelium or the inner lining of the vessel. So some of the properties and functions of endothelial cells are shown in this page. So maintenance of permeability barrier, elaboration of anticoagulant, antithrombotic, and fibrinolytic regulators, elaboration of prothrombic molecules, production of cellular matrix, and so on and so on. And beside those functions, beside those properties are the mediators responsible for regulation of those property and functions. Also on this side picture on the right, it shows an endothelial cell that represents the endothelium, and then uh, under the basal state, the following factors such as normotension, normal laminar flow, and some growth factors also regulate the basal state of the endothelium, which is it is non-adhesive, non-thrombogenic surface, or meaning it doesn't stimulate formation of thrombus. On the other end, is an activated state of the endothelium due to the following factors: turbulent flow, hypertension, cytokine, complement of cell product, lipid product, and advanced glycation, and product hypoxia, viruses against smoking. This will lead, all these factors will lead to activated state of endothelium, wherein the activated state of the endothelium increase expression of procoagulants, adhesion, molecules, and pro-inflammatory factors, and also altered expression of the chemokines, cytokines that will eventually lead to a state wherein it promotes uh, coagulation or formation of uh, thrombus. So, more or less nga na nga state when it's activated. Okay, still under vascular wall response injury, another figure to for you to further understand the response of the vascular wall when there's. Let's try to divide this into one. Already listed. So this part, the part here is the normal endothelium, normal vascular wall. So let's assume that this part is the injured part. So if there's injury, there's injury. So tendency is the endothelium cells, endothelium, and the smooth muscle cells here, and also in the circulating signal cells, will tend to uh, migrate to the injured area in order to proliferate, and eventually these smooth muscle cells will produce uh, extracellular matrix on the injured part, so that this injured part will have thickening compared to this one. So that's part that that process is actually part of the response of the body to the injury. Okay, so actually, uh, healing of injured vessels is
analogous to the healing process that occurs in any other damaged tissue. But actually, the outcome is kind of unique lang because uh, the output of this response will tell the impact of the downstream blood flow after the injury or after the healing process. Okay. So this table shows the key concept under vascular wall response to injury. So again, all vessels are lined by endothelium. Endothelium cell function is tightly regulated in both and basal and activated states. I discussed this bago lang. And then in injury, sorry, during injury, so to the vessel wall, it results in a stereotype healing process, healing response involving the smooth muscle proliferation and introduction of extracellular matrix deposition and then eventually intimal expansion or katong thickening na mentioned kanina. All those process, there is recruitment activation of the smooth muscle cells that signals from cells such as the katong mga infiltrating cells. Later, we discuss natin further about ng mga infiltrating cells like platelets and macrophages. And then there's excessive thickening of the intima. That excessive thickening may result in luminal stenosis or narrowing of the lumen of the vascular wall or obstruction. Okay, after vascular wall response to injury, let's proceed to hypertensive vascular disease. So hypertension, the picture on the left, so a table that presents the types and causes of hypertension. 90 to 95% of all the cases of hypertension is under essential hypertension, meaning it is primary, it doesn't have any secondary cause. So essential hypertension, 90 to 95%. When you are already an intern, so you will encounter a lot of patients with essential hypertension. The second type of hypertension is secondary hypertension. So under secondary hypertension, we have different causes. So we have renal causes, endocrine causes, cardiovascular, and neurologic. So after renal, we have acute glomerulonephritis, chronic renal diseases, for endocrine, adrenocortical hyperfunction, probably due to tumor, pseudocytoma, cardiovascular, and so on and so forth. So, bali, this table will just show you the different types and causes of the two major types, the essential and the secondary. Complications. So, under complications, hypertension will eventually lead to complications. So, it will increase the risk of atherosclerosis, then it will cause cardiac hypertrophy, chemical heart diseases, heart failure, CVD or cerebrovascular diseases such as hemorrhage, infarct, dementia, aortic dissection, and renal failure. Okay, so this one, this is just a review of your physiology about blood pressure. Okay, so again, blood pressure is sa kanina part. So blood pressure is a function of cardiac output and peripheral resistance. So both of which are influenced by multiple genetic and environmental factors. For cardiac output, it is influenced by the heart rate and contractility under cardiac factors. It's also influenced by the blood volume, the contribution of the sodium, mineral particles, and ATL nucleic peptides. And then under peripheral resistance, we have the neural factors, the constrictors, and the dilators. And then also humoral factors, they also have constrictors factors and dilators. Okay? So that would produce the blood pressure. And then the picture on the right, this one shows the interplay of the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone, and also natriuretic peptide in maintaining the blood pressure. So we'll just discuss this uh, a little bit lang ito. So normally our body is trying to maintain a normal blood pressure, right? So if ever there's decrease in blood pressure because of some factors, so this decrease in blood pressure will stimulate the kidney to produce the renin. Okay, the function of the renin is it will convert the angiotensinogen that is produced by the liver to angiotensinogen 1. And then the lungs and other endothelial tissue will produce angiotensinogen converting enzyme to further convert angiotensinogen 1 to angiotensin 2. And this angiotensin 2 will have effect on the adrenal gland to produce aldosterone. And then the aldosterone, the effect of aldosterone to the kidney is to increase reabsorption of sodium and water. That will lead to increase in blood volume. That will lead to increase in blood pressure. So from blood pressure, if nakasabay mo sa akong discussion, all of this will lead to increase in blood pressure to compensate for the decrease in blood pressure. Also, angiotensin 2 will also cause vasoconstriction to further increase the blood pressure. Now, if there's a condition where there's increase in blood pressure po, the abnormal po the increased pressure, the body will also compensate through first, this increased blood pressure will lead to volume overload. And when there's volume overload, the body or the heart, there's a release of natriuretic peptides coming from the portion of the heart, which will cause vasodilation and also has an effect on the kidney to excrete excess sodium and water to decrease the blood volume. That would decrease the blood pressure. Okay, so this interplay of renin, angiotensin, aldosterone, and ANP will maintain the normal blood pressure of the kidney. Now, there are times na our body cannot compensate or cannot maintain the blood volume, maintain the blood pressure, normal blood pressure in some conditions. So, the example, increased blood pressure due to increased blood volume. So these are the factors. So there's excess dietary sodium, inadequate excretion in renal failure, and hyperaldosteronism condition. There's increased sodium resorption in conditions like Little-Man, Bartter, and Little syndromes, and also increase in resistance due to pheochromocytoma and increased renin-angiotensin aldosterone. So basically, kato akong i-discuss again is the production, the maintenance of blood pressure. So if there's abnormality on those katong any part of those, that would lead to either increase or decrease of blood pressure. So again, key concepts on about hypertension. So blood pressure is determined by capillary resistance and cardiac output. Capillary resistance is regulated at the level of arterioles, influenced by the neural and glomerular inputs. Cardiac output is determined by heart rate and stroke volume. Renin is a major regulator of blood pressure, secreted by the kidney in response to decreased blood pressure in the cardiac arterioles, and so. Okay, again, I've mentioned a while ago about essential and secondary hypertension. Under essential hypertension, these are the following causes or factors that contribute to the development of essential hypertension. We have genetic factors. Okay, so if your parents, if your grandparents do have essential hypertension, so there's an increased risk for you to have essential hypertension. And also, other factors like insufficient renal sodium excretion, vasoconstrictive influences, environmental factors such as stress, obesity, smoking, physical inactivity, and heavy salt consumption. So actually, in these environmental factors, dapat included is those medical students. Why? Because most of you are stressed, you have decreased in your physical activity, and then probably you take too much salt consumption, like taking with area if during magpoon. So what do you think? If medical students are prone uh, to have essential hypertension because of the under these environmental. Then we have secondary hypertension. So same sa katong i-present sa table ganina, no? So we'll just mention it again lang. So under secondary, the common are this one, renal artery stenosis, endovascular hypertension, in the condition of primary hyperaldosteronism, and those with single gene disorders, those with gene defects in affecting enzymes involved in aldosterone metabolism. You remember the effect of aldosterone gene maintaining the blood pressure. And then also mutation affecting proteins that influence sodium reabsorption. Still under hypertension or hypertensive vascular disease. So let's go to the histopathology of those characteristics of hypertension, or let's say the microscopic description of the affected arterioles due to chronic hypertension. So let's first we have hyaline arteriosclerosis. It refers to the effect of hypertension wherein these arterioles shows marginal stream hyaline thickening, shown in this picture. So there's thickening and this homogeneous pink hyaline stage that would eventually narrow the lumen of arterioles. We also have hyperplastic arteriolosclerosis. This refers to the affected arterioles will present or exhibit concentric this one, concentric laminated thickening of the walls with luminal narrowing. This concentric laminated is also described as onion skin due to severe hypertension. So this hyperplastic arteriolosclerosis is accompanied by fibrinoid deposit and vessel wall and closed. And then also pulmonary hypertension. So histologic changes ranging from fibrotic intimal thickening to medial hyperplasia. So that's for hypertension. Then we have uh, arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis. So arteriosclerosis refers to the hardening of the arteries. So this is different from atherosclerosis, which will be further discussed in a while. So arteriosclerosis, hardening of arteries, is also due to arterial wall thickening and loss of elasticity of that affected artery. So we have four general patterns. So atherosclerosis that affects the small arteries and arterioles, and then also the macular medial sclerosis, which is characterized by calcifications of the medial walls of the muscular arteries. Then third is fibromuscular intimal hyperplasia that occurs in muscular arteries larger than arterioles and driven by inflammation. And the last one is atherosclerosis. For atherosclerosis, this underlies the pathogenesis of coronary, cerebral, and peripheral vascular diseases and cause more morbidity and mortality. So this table shows the major risk factors for the formation of atherosclerosis. So it is divided into two, non-modifiable and modifiable. So factors under non-modifiable, wala tayong mabuhatan na. It refers to genetic abnormalities, family history, increasing age, na-stop ba na nato ato ang age, male gender. So those are factors nga wala tayong do. However, there are modifiable factors that contribute to the formation of atherosclerosis, such as hyperlipidemia, hypertension, cigarette smoking, diabetes, and inflammation. We have so far you have questions, right? If you have no questions, I guess we can proceed. Yeah, let's proceed. So still under factors for the formation of atherosclerosis. So let's discuss those modifiable factors. We have hyperlipidemia or hypercholesterolemia. This is enough or sufficient to initiate formation of the lesion. So we have LDL and HDL. LDL or low density lipoprotein. So these are considered bad cholesterol. Why? Because the function of LDL is to deliver cholesterol to peripheral tissue. So meaning this will promote storage of cholesterol in the body or in the tissue. The opposite is the function of the HDL or high density lipoprotein. So it transports cholesterol from periphery to liver in order for it to undergo catabolism and bile excretion. Thus, it excretes the body. Thus, this will reduce the risk. Okay, that's why part of the lipid panel na laboratory test is the measurement of the LDL and HDL. If increase ang LDL beyond the normal values, that would also increase your risk for the formation of atherosclerosis. Uh, the opposite will happen if your HDL is increased and your LDL is normal or decreased. Another factor that contributes to formation of atherosclerosis is hypertension. So, actually, hypertension has many diseases risk na it is always risk sa daghang kay conditions, diseases na related sa cardiovascular. So the hypertension will increase the risk of ischemic heart diseases approximately by 60%. And chronic hypertension is the most common cause of left ventricular hypertrophy. Another modifiable major risk factor for formation of atherosclerosis, we have cigarette smoking. So, prolonged years, use prolonged cigarette smoking doubles the death rate from ischemic heart disease. And smoking cessation will actually reduce the risk. Also, diabetes mellitus, another condition, uh, that another risk factor. It induces hypercholesterolemia, markedly increase the risk of atherosclerosis. MI or myocardial infarction is twice as high in diabetic patients. It also increased risk of stroke and there's 100-fold increase risk of atherosclerosis induced gangrene. So there are also additional risk factors like inflammation, hyperhomocystinemia, metabolic syndrome, lipoprotein A, and factors affecting hemostasis. Also, the lack of exercise, uh, the type A personality, and obesity are other factors that contribute to the formation of atherosclerosis. So still under atherosclerosis, so let's uh, understand the atheroma or the atherosclerotic plaque that is produced and how it is produced actually. So atheroma or atherosclerotic plaque is actually a raised lesion with soft lumos core of lipid. It is covered by, so this yellow part is the lipid portion. This is actually the endothelial cells coming apart, endothelial cells siya, and then the lumen of the vessel. And then sa wall, mo ni siya ang kanang dire mo start ang formation of atherosclerotic plaque. This plaque is actually covered by fibrous cap. So kaning part, this is the fibrous cap. And eventually, if it grows big, it will actually mechanically obstruct the blood flow. Okay, so what else we can see here? We have these big cells are actually macrophages, and these kind of mga slender cells are actually smooth muscles that engulf lipids that are accumulated here. So, and then there's extracellular lipid. So that actually compose atherosclerotic or atheroma. Okay, and then also there are necrotic centers composed of cell debris, cholesterol crystals, foam cells. Foam cells are other term for those macrophages and smooth muscle cells that engulf liquid. So this one is the media. Is actually this kanina part is really pasakad side. So what will happen to a vessel that is affected by growing or developing atherosclerotic plaque? So this again, this will eventually obstruct blood flow as it progresses. And when there's a possibility that it will rupture, and when it rupture, it could lead to obstructive vascular thrombosis. And also, this increases the uh, diffusion distance from the lumen to the media, leading to ischemic injury that will further progress the formation. Remember, guys, the vessels also need to be supplied by the blood. Okay, so the cells here, the smooth muscle cells here, part of the media, if there's atheroma, so that's what it means when there's atheroma, it makes the distance of the blood flowing here greater. It makes their distance greater from the blood. So it means na dili kay sila masuplayan of nutrients coming from it. What will happen to them? They will undergo injury, ischemic injury because of atherosclerosis. And thus the affected vessel will become weakened that results to conditions like formation of aneurysm. We will discuss those later. Sige. So step by step, let's discuss the pathogenesis. Okay, this is a normal vessel showing the normal vascular wall. This is the endothelium, the media, tunica media, and the adventitia, the ventral part. Okay, if there's injury, remember our discussion about response to injury. So there's thickening because of the migration of the smooth muscle cells. Aside from that, there's additions of macrophages, monocytes, and this one, platelet, to the injured area. So this will cause migration of macrophages to the injured area. Smooth muscle cells will also migrate and proliferate to this area. Platelets. So what's the purpose or function of platelet, Yanni? Can you kuan? Okay, hemostasis. Okay, so the platelet or formation of platelet plug is actually the first part of hemostasis. There's a question there. Doc, may I ask po, I just observed that doctors give medication to patients with increased LDL cholesterol. Is there a treatment po for decreased HDL cholesterol? That's a nice question. Yes, you're right. Doctors will give statins like uh, simvastatin and other statins that would decrease the level of LDL in our system, in our body. However, for HDL, decreased HDL, there's no medication for decreased HDL. So, uh, based on my experience and also in my learning, so there's no treatment to increase the HDL. However, according to studies, change in your lifestyle. So by by regular exercise, it will eventually lead to uh, increase in HDL according to studies. But of course, not all will lead to increase in HDL. But for to answer your question, okay, if there's no medication to increase the decreased HDL. Okay, exercise will help. I guess that's the right term. Exercise will help. Sige, let's proceed. So again, we're already here. The macrophages, the monocytes, the smooth muscle cells, the platelet, and other factors are on the injured. They migrated to the injured part, and this will uh, result to their proliferation. And when they are proliferated, they are activated. They will eventually release chemicals like cytokines, chemokines, that will further invite more inflammatory cells, and thus that will lead to accumulation of lipids and fats, and will the first lesion, we call that fatty streaks. So other inflammatory cells like T lymphocytes will also be in the injured area until such that as the accumulation progress, it will eventually form the atherosclerotic plaque. Okay, there's already the accumulated necrotic uh, lipid laden area here, and also the involved inflammatory cells. They also engulf lipid. So the lipid is already both intra and extracellular. So this will cause thickening of the wall. Thickening of wall will the wall of the affected vessel due to atherosclerotic plaque will eventually lead to narrowing of the lumen. Another closer view of how atherosclerotic plaque are formed. Again, those monocytes, macrophages, they will those will migrate from the circulation to the injured part. So from monocyte, they will become macrophage, and then these macrophage will engulf the lipids. So they will become foam cells, or other term is lipid-laden macrophages. And also these smooth muscle cells from circulation and also from tunica media, they also be in the injured part. Again, as I mentioned, they will become proliferate. They will proliferate. They will be activated, and then they will produce extracellular matrix. Proliferation will happen, and then some cells will be next caused out extracellular lipids and necrotic cells from cell debris. Debris will contribute to the formation of necrosis, so that would all lead to formation of the atherosclerotic plaque. Now, remember we mentioned about HDL. So the HDL would normally help the efflux, or at least mabawasan ang lipid sa tissue. However, imbalance of this, meaning there's more influx than efflux, will favor development of atherosclerotic plaque. Okay, so far you have questions? None. Okay, let's proceed. So this is a picture, gross and microscopic of atherosclerosis. So again, we started with the atherosclerotic plaque will start as fatty streak. I don't know if makakita mo sa kaning gamay kaayo. Nailumin diha, that represents a kuan part sa lumen sa ano. So there's area there nga naay murag nag-start nga fatty streak. And that fatty streak under the microscope, kaning gi-point sa kuan, kaning akong gi-encircle. So that actually is what compose a fatty streak under the microscope. So these are actually macrophages that engulf the lipids. So these are composed of accumulated foam cells. So that what makes fatty streak. So fatty streak again is the first lesion before mo progress to atherosclerotic plaque. So this one, to compare, this one is actually mas advanced na siya nga atherosclerotic plaque. Mas advanced na siya. Kaya na, ang katong atherosclerotic plaque na on this area, so ni, ano na siya, ni rupture na siya, and then that rupture promotes formation of thrombosis. So that's why na-eye ka ng brown. May pagka-thrombotic, may mga thrombus formation na. In terms of what vessels are usually involved, so most extensively involved vessels are the following: lower abdominal aorta, iliac arteries, coronary, popliteal, internal carotid arteries, and the vessels of Willis, the brain. Vessels that are paired, upper extremities, mesenteric, renal, ostia sa renal vein. At will happen. So again, we already mentioned about the components, so we'll emphasize lang. The four principal components of the formation of atherosclerosis, we have under the cells. What are those cells? The smooth muscle cells, the macrophages, and the T lymphocytes. I mentioned na siya. Extracellular matrix produced by these activated cells are collagen, elastic fibers, proteoglycans. Then the intracellular and extracellular lipids. And then eventually, the atherosclerotic plaque will undergo calcification sa later stage. So that's why under the microscope, kaning mga darkly stained, kaning mga it represents the area nga calcified. Secondary changes of atherosclerosis. So what will happen to atherosclerotic plaque? So the secondary changes, it may rupture or ulcerate, or there's erosion. Under rupture and ulceration, rupture of this atheromatous plaque will expose the bloodstream to highly thrombogenic substances and will lead to thrombosis. Okay? So remember, ang atherosclerotic plaque ma-produce na siya or mag-start na siya sa wall, but if ever mo-rupture na siya, ang katong bloodstream, ang katong coagular, it will eventually activate the coagulation process, and that coagulation process will help stop the bleeding of that ruptured area. So eventually, ang katong mga flag, platelet flag, coagulant factors will produce plaque that will stop the bleeding, and that will, and all of those components will produce that thrombus na possible ma-form if there's rupture or ulceration sa atherosclerotic plaque. Then also hemorrhage into the plaque. So of course, blood might go into that portion sa atherosclerotic plaque, and then atheroembolism, if may thrombus formation, if ma-dislodge to, that would become embolus. So if may thrombus, may tendency, if ma-dislodge ang thrombus, makakause siya og embolus. So nagya po atheroembolism nga risk. And then aneurysm formation. So this is an example of a atherosclerotic plaque na ni-rupture and then na-form niya thrombus. So that thrombus causes narrowing or obstruction of the lumen of this affected vessel. So what are the consequences of atherosclerotic diseases? So these atherosclerotic diseases, katong na-mention nato, will lead to myocardial infarction, cerebral infarction, aortic aneurysm, and peripheral vascular diseases like gangrene of the legs. Okay, the major targets of atherosclerosis, na-mention na ni ganina katong mga involved na vessels. Okay, this figure just shows the progression and what will happen to atherosclerotic plaque as it progresses. So from mild pang apart, tapay thin cap formation, it thickens, it further narrows the lumen up to the point na ay changes, secondary changes, there's rupture that would lead to formation of thrombus, and this formation of thrombus will obstruct or further narrow the lumen, and then the body will try to stop the bleeding, then eventually this one will there's what do you call this? Nalimot ko sa term. More on as it forms the thrombus, as the body try to stop the formation of or further formation of thrombus. So what will happen is mas stabilize ang kaning plaque, macalcified, so will produce fibrocalcific plaque, and then will lead to stenosis of the affected. Imagine if this vessel is a coronary artery or sa portion sa circle of Willis. So what will happen? So the organs being supplied by these affected arteries will lead to ischemia, thus na ay mga heart attack or myocardial infarction and stroke para ng mga cerebrovascular na ischemia. And then ang final outcome, of course, dili na siya ma-stop o dili ma-manage on time. This will lead to sudden cardiac attack or kung sa brain stroke. So these are the consequences. So gradual occlusion of the vessel, remodeling, that's the term di ay remodeling. Limod ko anong sa. So remodeling kato i-try niya og stop ang katong further occlusion. Eventually ma-stabilize niya, ma-calcify ang area. So remodeling ang step. And again, as shown in this one, there is what we call critical stenosis. It refers to the stage at which the occlusion of the lumen of the involved vessel is sufficiently severe to cause tissue ischemia. So in terms of percentage, 70-75% decrease in luminal cross-sectional area is considered critical stenosis. So if that vessel is supplying the heart, that would cause chest pain or kanang term na to as stable ang ganun. So again, acute plaque change, what will happen to a plaque? It can rupture, it can fissure, erosive laceration, and relation that. Okay, that's all for atherosclerosis. So still under vascular diseases are aneurysm and dissection. So first, aneurysm. Aneurysm is localized abnormal dilation of a blood vessel uh, or the heart that may be congenital or acquired. And when an aneurysm involves all the layers of an intact arterial wall or the same ventricular wall of the heart, it is called true aneurysm. Example of true aneurysm is this one. There's aneurysm formation here, or subboth, or circular. This one, this is a saccular type and fusiform type of aneurysm, but both of these are considered true aneurysm. What is false aneurysm? There's one. If the wall is not intact na and causes accumulation of blood and hematoma. So it looks like there's aneurysm formation, but actually it's not a real or it's considered a false aneurysm. Actually, it's just an hematoma. And what is dissection? Dissection is this one. Section is refers to uh, the blood enters the wall of the affected vessel and it separates the layers and the blood accumulates in the wall. So that's dissection. So let's further discuss aneurysm. So aneurysm, based on macroscopic shape and size, again, can be classified into saccular, fusiform, and saccular. This is a saccular. It is a spherical outpouching. Just a portion of vessel wall is affected, and measurement is 2 to 20 mm if it's intracranial. In aorta, it may reach 5 to 10 mm in size. The fusiform aneurysm, the affected area is actually circumferential dilation of longer vascular segment compared to subsaccular. This may reach 5 to 10 cm in aorta. So, two most important causes or risk factors for formation of aortic aneurysm, hypertension and atherosclerosis. Atong na-discuss din na nga mga risk factor. So, an example of aneurysm is abdominal aortic aneurysm or triple A. So, it occurs more frequently in men and those who are smoking. So, this one is usually between the renal artery and the perforation of the aorta. So, triple A can be saccular or fusiform. And these are the variants, inflammatory, vascular, and mycotic. Mycotic refers to those aneurysm which is there is uh, association of microorganisms. So this one, all that aneurysm. Still under triple A or abdominal aortic aneurysm. So most are completely asymptomatic. So they can be discovered PE as incidental finding. And however, other clinical manifestations, it can cause rupture sa peritoneal cavity or retroperitoneal tissue, or it can cause obstruction or embolization for atheroma or mural thrombus, or it can impinge an adjacent structure. So, basta aneurysm, there's always a risk for rupture. Okay, so in terms of percentage, those who are less than 4 cm, there's almost no risk for rupture. However, as it goes bigger, like 4 to 5 cm, 1% per year, those who are 5 to 6 cm in size, 11% per year, and more than 6 cm, at higher, 11% risk of rupture. Dissection, as mentioned kanina, so dissection is, it occurs when the blood separates the laminar plane of the media to form a blood-filled channel within the aortic wall. So, for example, if the blood goes or accumulates sa wall of vessel. And this one is the aorta. So under microscopic part, so this area here is the blood, and this one is the wall of the vascular, of the affected vascular. So this aortic dissection, they usually occur in two groups of patients. Those men aged 40 to 60 and with risk due to hypertension. But there are also younger patients, but those younger patients with syndromic disease like Marfan syndrome, they are also at risk for formation of diuretic dissection. Again, hypertension is a major risk for aortic dissection. So, classification of aortic dissection, you have type A and type B. Under type A, so this one, DBK1 and DBK2. So type A, they are more common and more dangerous. So both the ascending and descending aorta or pwede sa ang ascending ra. They are type A under type A, and then type B is more on sa distal to subclavian artery and affection. So for classic clinical symptoms of this aortic dissection, there's a sudden onset of cruciating pain. So after aneurysm, after dissection, now let's proceed to vasculitis. So vasculitis, it refers, or the general term we use to characterize vessel wall inflammation. From the word kanang vasculitis, so usually if the organ, you just put itis, it refers to inflammation of appendicitis, inflammation of appendix. So in this case, vasculitis or vessel wall inflammation. So clinical manifestation typically include signs and symptoms associated with systemic inflammation. So there's fever, myalgia, arthralgia, and malaise. On this table, it presents the different types of vasculitis and also the sites of involvement. And then the inflammatory cells present or involved, or inflammatory cells that you can see. And then the other feature. Okay, so we will discuss these vasculitis one by one. But this table is very important as we study this to try to differentiate these vasculitis from each other. Let's start with the giant cell. Giant cell or the temporal arteritis, also known as the temporal arteritis. So this is a chronic, classically granulomatous inflammation of large to small size arteries, and that principally affects arteries in the head. So this is considered the most common form of vasculitis among elderly in the US and Europe. So as shown in this picture, so this karta dire sa pinakakuan. So this one is lost picture of the temporal artery that is affected by giant cell arteritis. Under the microscope, there's granulomatous inflammation. So this thickened area. This is actually the portion that refers to the granulomatous inflammation. So, kaning area nga gi-point niya is actually giant cell, multinucleated giant cell, which is part of granuloma. This thickening, this granuloma, this chronic inflammation causes uh, narrowing of this lumen. So symptoms related to this giant cell arteritis, they can cause vague or constitutional symptoms like fever, fatigue, weight loss, and then if uh, we can also cause facial pain or headache. So most intense is of course sa kaning area sa affected. So by the way, this one is uh, this picture shows a special staining of this affected uh, vessel to show this kaning black na part. This is the elastic portion of the affected vessel. As you can see, there's discontinuity in this area. And actually, this area refers to this part. Itong part na affected by the giant cell arteritis. So because of those giant cell arteritis, there is loss of some elastic component of the affected vessel. That is giant cell arteritis. Next, we have Takayusa arteritis. So Takayusa arteritis, this is also granulomatous na type of vasculitis. Usually, basta granulomatous, they are considered chronic. Granulomatous vasculitis of medium and larger arteries, characterized principally by ocular disturbances and marked weakening of the pulses in the upper extremities. Hence, the other term is pulseless disease. So there's the picture shows here is actually aortic arch angiogram showing the narrowing of different areas like here kaning narrowing of brachiocephalic, here narrowing of carotid, and then this part is narrowing of the subclavian arteries. And then this picture shows the cross section of the affected carotid artery, and it demonstrates uh, intimal thickening, and this intimal thickening show results to minimal this intimal thickening results to narrowing of the lumen, and in this picture there's only a minimal residual lumen. And then microscopically uh, it uh, it shows uh, description of uh, granulomatous na vessel. There's formation of granuloma with presence of multinucleated giant cells, and then lymphocytic infiltrates and epithelioid or uh, activated macrophages. So patients that experience Takayusa arteritis are usually under 50 years of age. Symptoms are fatigue, weight loss, and fever. And other vascular symptoms, it can cause reduced BP, weaker pulses. Again, that's why it is also called pulseless disease. Ocular disturbances and neurologic deficit. Next, we have polyarteritis nodosa or PAN. So PAN is a systemic vasculitis of small or medium-sized muscular arteries that typically affects renal and visceral vessels but spares pulmonary circulation. So it is associated with segmental transmural necrotizing inflammation of small and medium-sized arteries. So shown in this picture, so this picture shows a kanina part is the fibrinoid necrosis. Kanina part, kanina, fibrinoid necrosis and occlusion of the lumen. This part is supposed to be the lumen, so excluded na siya because of the fibrinoid necrosis because of the polyarteritis nodosa. So kanang gi-point niya is actually the normal unaffected part of the artery. Ang kaning nag-undergo polyarteritis nodosa is kaning part. Fibrinoid necrosis, nag-occlusion na. So actually, there's acute phase and older version. Older lesion, sorry. Acute phase, there's only transmural inflammation with mixed infiltrate. So, older version, there's fibrous thickening of the cell and wall. So, it mentioned about mixed infiltrate. So, those mixed infiltrates composed of neutrophils, eosinophils, mononuclear cells. So, kaning mga gagmay na infiltrating cells. So actually they are mix of neutrophils, eosinophils, and mononuclear cells, which is part of the infiltrating cells in that can be seen in a polyarteritis nodosa. So presentation, it can present with rapidly accelerating hypertension, abdominal pain, bloody stools, diffuse myalgia, and peripheral neuritis. So that is PAN. Next, we have Kawasaki. This one, Kawasaki disease. We can, if you're lucky, you can have patients with Kawasaki disease, or you can encounter patients with Kawasaki disease. So it refers to acute febrile, usually self-limited illness of infancy and childhood. So meaning, ang yung patients na ma-encounter with Kawasaki usually they are infant, childhood. So this is associated to large and medium-sized vessel arteritis. 80% actually is younger than 4 years of age, and there is involvement of coronary arteritis. So the lesion it resembles PAN because of the dense transmural inflammatory infiltrate. But this type of disease usually subsides spontaneously or in response to treatment. In terms of manifestation, it manifests as conjunctival or oral erythema and blistering, edema of the hands and feet, erythema of the palms and soles, flat, cervical lymph node enlargement. That's why it is sometimes referred to or called leukopenic lymph node syndrome. That's Kawasaki disease. You remember this one? You might encounter this on your clinic. Then we have microscopic polyangiitis. So this one, it affects capillaries as well as small arterioles. So other term is hypersensitivity vasculitis or leukocytoclastic vasculitis. So this one is characterized by segmental fibrinoid necrosis, segmental necrosis of the media with focal transmural necrotizing lesion. So this one shows the necrosis, and this area shows the part that refers to the leukocytoclastic vasculitis because there's fragmented neutrophils seen na this sa kaning area nag-accumulate. These are fragmented neutrophils that can be seen in and around the blood vessel wall. So in terms of manifestation, hemoptysis, hematuria, proteinuria, bowel pain or bleeding, muscle pain or weakness, and palpable cutaneous purpura. Then we have granulomatosis with and like this in the figure. So the this area, this one, this shows the uh, gross picture of the patient with lung, lung of a patient with fatal granulomatosis with this kind of condition. So this shows some nodules with different sizes, uh, with central cavitation, and of course, carrying black is hemorrhage. This picture here, this is a microscopic uh, presentation of this condition. It composed of vasculitis of small artery with adjacent granulomatous inflammation, including epithelioid cells and giant cells. So again, this same sa other granulomatous na inflammation, when we say granulomatous, it refers to a chronic inflammation that forms granuloma. And basic components sa granuloma is mga activated epithelioid, encircled by lymphocytes, and then presence of these mga multinucleated giant cells. Sorry. Present with bilateral pneumonitis with nodules and cavitary lesions with 95% coming from the sample ganina. And then patients can have chronic sinusitis, mucosal ulceration of nasopharynx, and renal disease. Again, parts of the triad. No? Then we have thromboangiitis obliterans or Buerger's disease. So it is characterized by segmental thrombosing, acute and chronic inflammation of the medium and small size arteries. This one is affected is in tibial and radial arteries. So maybe you are confused na sana kapag differentiate ang mga vasculitis. Guys, are you still there? Can you still hear me? Okay, yes, po, yes. Okay, thank you. So maybe you are questioning how can we differentiate it vasculitis. So clue lang na ako is remember katong mga mostly affected vessels. So if na-notice ninyo na nato yung mga mostly affected vessels kada type of vasculitis, and also ang age mo matter, and also asa tong may granuloma, asa tong may acute na inflammation, katong mga neutrophils na ko. And so eventually ma-separate ninyo and maka-help na siya in order for you to have a diagnosis sa unsa ka specific nga vasculitis ang probably be asked.
sa exam. So this one, affected vessels show acute and chronic inflammation with luminal thrombosis. So this is a thrombosis that actually totally obstruct this affected vessel. And this one, according to one, is affected by both acute and chronic thrombosis. Actually, this part, kaning area, kaning the point niya is made of micro abscess. And this micro abscess is actually the acute component sa kaninga case. Manifestations, Raynaud phenomenon, instable claudication, superficial nodular phlebitis. And this one occurs almost exclusively in heavy cigarette smokers. Okay, so kana maka-add po di siya og clue sa exam. Next, we have disorders of veins. So obvious naman this is a picture of varicose veins. So what are varicose veins? They are abnormally dilated tortuous veins produced by prolonged increased intraluminal pressure with vessel dilation and incompetence of the venous valves. So these superficial veins, the affected superficial veins of the upper and lower leg, they are commonly involved because venous pressures in these sites can be markedly elevated, actually up to 10 times the normal, by prolonged dependent posture. So, so to, no, if magsigig barog, magsigig ka ng if everyday magsigig barog na kuan sa trabaho mo, iyahan kuan di kay sa kalingkod. So prone to formation of varicose veins. So actually other types of varicose veins in other areas I would like to mention. We have esophageal varices. So these esophageal varices, they are produced when there's liver cirrhosis. And this liver cirrhosis causes portal vein hypertension to the opening of portosystemic shunts that increase blood. Also hemorrhoids. Also on hemorrhoids can also result from primary varicose dilation of the venous plexus at the anorectal junction. Okay? So these are also pare-pareha ra sila og kanang kuan but sa varicose veins, ang location lang actually ang difference niya. Okay, let's proceed to vascular tumors. So under vascular tumors, we have benign, intermediate, and malignant. So mostly are benign. So uh, we will discuss tumors under benign, under intermediate, and malignant. So first we have hemangioma. So these hemangioma are actually they are common. They are very common tumors composed of blood-filled vessels. So they constitute 7% of all benign tumors of infancy and childhood. So most of these hemangiomas they are present in birth and initially increase in size. Okay? So let's mention the histologic and clinical variants. We have capillary, juvenile, cavernous, and pyogenic. For capillary, this is the most common type and occur in the skin, subcutaneous tissue, and mucous membrane cavities. Example, this one. This is a capillary one. There's also juvenile. Uh, juvenile hemangioma, also called strawberry type hemangioma. In the newborn skin, but they are extremely common and can be multiple. For cavernous hemangioma, as shown in this one, cavernous hemangioma are composed of large dilated vascular channels, so as shown in this area. And as shown in this microscopic so microscopic features of this cavernous hemangioma are dilated uh, vascular channels. These cavernous hemangioma, they are more infiltrative and they involve deep structure compared sa katong previously mentioned nga capillary vein. Then we also have pyogenic granuloma. These are capillary hemangioma that presents as rapidly growing, red pedunculated lesion on the skin, gingival, or mucosa. They bleed easily and are often ulcerated. Next, we have lymphangiomas. Lymphangiomas are benign. This one is lymphatic counterparts of the hemangioma. Okay? So, as shown in the picture is an example of cavernous lymphangiomas or also known as cystic hygromas. They are typically found in the neck or axilla of the children and they may become big as 15 cm. And these lesions are composed of massive, massively dilated lymphatic spaces lined by endothelial cells and separated by intervening connective tissue, and it may excuse me guys, can you still hear me? Can you
Yes, Doc.
okay, okay. Uh, sige, sige, proceed ka. So again, these lesions are composed of massively dilated lymphatic spaces lined by endothelial cells, and there are occasional or lymphoid follicles seen. Again, this is a cavernous lymphangioma or cystic hygroma. Then we have glomus tumor. Glomus tumor are actually benign, but they are painful tumors arising from modified smooth muscle cells of the glomus bodies. So they are usually superficial. They resemble hemangioma, and they are most commonly found sa distal portion sa digit as same sa kaning portion. So if we just excise ang kaning glomus tumor, so actually its position is curative. So in this picture, this is the microscopic characteristic of glomus tumor. This is composed of tumor cells that are sharply punched out, rounded nucleus with amphiphilic or pale eosinophilic cytoplasm. Glomus tumor. Then we go to intermediate grade tumors. So we have Kaposi sarcoma. Kaposi sarcoma is a vascular neoplasm caused by human herpes virus 8 or HHV8. It is transmitted sexually and potentially via oral secretions and cutaneous exposure. So Kaposi sarcoma is by far most common in patients with AIDS. So classic Kaposi sarcoma is a disorder of older men with Mediterranean, Middle Eastern or Eastern European descent associated with malignancy or altered immunity. wala na ang audio. Ah, nawalan ako, nawala ng audio. Na. Okay, balik na. Sige, sorry, nalobat ang kuan. Nalobat earbud. Sige, please bear with me, hapit na ta mahuman. So, angiosarcoma are malignant endothelial neoplasm with histology varying from highly differentiated tumors that resemble hemangiomas to profoundly anaplastic lesions. So, histology varying from highly differentiated tumors to profoundly anaplastic lesions. So, the affected organs are mostly fins of tissue, breast, and liver. So, for angiosarcomas, hepatic angiosarcomas are associated with variety of carcinogenic exposures such as arsenic, chlorotras, and polyvinyl chloride. For cutaneous angiosarcoma, it can be benign as multiple deceptively small and asymptomatic red papules or nodules. More advanced lesions are large, fleshy masses of red gray to gray white tissue. So picture shows uh, this is angioma involving the right ventricle. Then microscopic description of moderately differentiated angiosarcoma with dense clumps of atypical cells lining distinct vascular lumen, and immunohistochemical staining for endothelial cell marker CD31, demonstrating the endothelial nature of the tumor cell. Okay, so uh, hapit na tamahuman. Can you still hear me? Closing na ta guys. Okay, thank you. So please read on the following, no? So we cannot discuss all. Uh, so I'll give you reading assignment. So please read on the following. So hematopoietic clones, and then about the statins, the class of drugs I mentioned a while ago. Then this lipoprotein A condition, pathogenesis of atherosclerosis in details, and then other conditions like infectious vasculitis, Strauss, Raynaud, thromboembolitis, superficial vena cava syndrome, lymphangitis, and lymphedema, and pathology of the vascular intervention. So, mo ni siya inyong reading assignment, no? Okay, so far, any question or you have any question before we close? Before we close this discussion? Question, Doc, is this included for next week cardio assessment? Actually, Doc Nolly asked me about my topic for this afternoon's lecture. So I guess yes. I told him that our topic is the vascular disease. So yes, I guess yeah. That's it. Yes. Okay. Any questions pa sa other ano? Okay, none so far. Isa pa, I need two more. Will you be making the exam po? No, it is fun. It is Docnoli's job to make the exam. So, I guess aside from my lecture, you read your book. So I based my lecture on Robbins. So you read always your book, your reference book. Do not just believe not just believe those who will give lectures to you. So you are already med student, so you know how to uh, check or validate if the lectures actually uh, are good information coming from anong mga valid or anong mga references. Okay, if there's no questions, please allow me to just share a scripture from the Bible. In Proverbs 3, chapter 3, verse 5 to 6. So it says here, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your steps. Okay, so in in all the things that you do, the inyong praise, the inyong studies, just trust always in the Lord. Sa inyong pag-study, sa inyong even pag wake up in the morning, sa inyong prayer, um, you surrender everything to Him. Sa inyong pag-studies, do not lean on your own understanding. Because the Lord is the source of wisdom. And always acknowledge Him. And He will surely direct your path. He will surely guide you. He will surely guide you. Okay, so thank you so much for your time. And um, if you have questions after this lecture, please let Daniel, you message Daniel about your question, so Daniel can forward your questions. And I'll do my best to answer, to give you the correct answer. So thank you so much for your time. Yes. Thank you and God bless us all.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Doc.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Doc.
Doc.
Arigatings.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.